All right, Scavengers, welcome to the Six Scale Scavengers podcast, episode 24. My name is Brian Fontaine. I'm joined as always with my good friend, Chris Letty, and we've got a great episode for everybody today. We've got a good guest co-host with us in TC, one of our regular members of the Scavengers Assemble. So TC, we're happy to have you here and give you another opportunity to talk some hot toys.
Oh yeah, man. It's great to be on, and it kind of feels like I've been called up to the big league. So this is a really exciting night for me. So I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, we're glad to have you here. And I know selfishly, Chris and I have actually behind the scenes have been talking about trying to get you on for a while, just because as we were just talking before we hit the record button, you're kind of one of the OG members. You've been part of our group community for the last, give or take, 9 months or so. And I think you're probably one of the most frequent guests on the Scavengers Assemble that isn't really a part of the team. I mean, I kind of consider you an extension of the team and the community here. But most importantly, TC, as I know you're such a big fan of the Iron Man Mark 50, affectionately known around our parts as the Markel. And that just happens to be our feature audio review of the episode. Chris, I'm doing better. This time out. I'm actually going to try to getting it up front because I usually bury the lead of our agenda. So we're going to talk about the Markel with TC. Got a good audio review of that. I might even attempt to rank the figure amongst the 11 Iron Man diecast figures that I have. I'm not so sure that I'm going to do very well at that. We've got a ton of news. Some of it we've already covered on the last Assemble, but we're going to go over that and expound on that between the three of us and give a little bit slightly different take than we gave prior. TC, you've got some collecting tips and stuff that you've learned over the years. You've been actually collecting longer than both Chris and I, even though we're much older than you. And as I mentioned with that review, so we got a great episode on tap, as I said.
Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. And looking forward to giving those tips. And I had been collecting a good amount of time, but it's been off and on. So I've kind of been in the hobby and out of the hobby. But yeah, happy to share some tips and hopefully they can help maybe one collector out there.
Absolutely. So before we delve into news, Chris, TC, this is a story I've been I've been holding tight to my chest for a while. You both know what I'm going to talk about. And I still can't believe that this happened, to be honest. And when I talk about this for our listeners, that anybody that's part of our Facebook community, Six Scale Scavenger Collectors on Facebook, they already know about this. And it started with a hypothetical question. And you both know that it wasn't quite so hypothetical at the time. But I asked our community to say, if you had the opportunity to acquire a figure that you already have at retail price, and it's probably one of the top 10 current Hot Toys desirable figures, what would you do? And it was funny because everybody had the same range of emotions that I did, because I didn't know what to do. And at the time I asked the question, I still thought this isn't going to happen. This is too good to be true. And until I actually have this in hand, I'm going to get punked. I mean, it might as well be April Fool's Day in June. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go through the mental exercises to say, well, what if, and what am I going to do? So early on June 3rd, and I looked it up because I had to look at the order number here. I was at work. It was mid-morning, just finished up. And I was getting ready to go start the next thing. And I was getting ready to go for just a quick little break walk. And I grabbed my phone, and just like any hot toy collector, sometimes I look at Sideshow. Sometimes I look at BigBadToyStore and just see, what's going on. Is there anything I've missed? Is there anything that's in stock now that wasn't before? Anything sold out, waitlist, vice versa? And I just, for some reason, had an inkling to go on BigBadToyStore. And anytime I go on BigBadToyStore, I usually will filter off of, most of my listeners know I'm looking at Marvel stuff. not Star Wars at this point. And I usually will sort out anything that's on pre-order, because if I'm going to pre-order it, I'm probably going to get it elsewhere than Big Bad Toy Store. And if it's sold out, I don't want to look at it. So I'll usually filter it so I can look at what's in stock. And just seeing like, hey, is any of the sales and stuff that they've got going on, are any of those still there? Are any of them really good? And it ended up being like 40 or so figures that I was kind of going through, and I'm sorting through. Nothing new on the first page. Second page, nothing new. And then the third page had about half. It was like half full than normal. I'm looking down, and one of the last listings there's an Iron Man figure. I'm like, what the heck? And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, that's the Mark 46. I'm like, what's going on here? So I click on the link, and I'm like, what is this? Like, and it says add to cart. I'm like, no. That's got to be a joke. And I'm looking at it, and Big Bad Toy Store has like collector grade, standard grade, and then TC, what's the other substandard grade is the other one. And it had the Mark 46 from Civil War, the diecast figure, as substandard grade at retail price. And I looked at it, and I'm like, no, this has got to be wrong. There's probably an intern with Big Bad Toy Store, and they're gonna get fired or something like that. But I had this momentary like, I got to go tell the group, and then I'm like, no, wait, if I'm seeing this now, who's gonna see it there? But before I tell somebody to go do it, is it already gonna be gone? And then I've lost the opportunity to like help out a scavenger. And then I'm like, wait a second, I could get this and I could sell it for twice or three times what it's going for. And that's like the evil conscience part of me that's like, So anyways, I'm like, before I could even think about it, guys, I added it to my cart. I paid for it, and I'm like, I'll just worry about it later, because I have a feeling they're going to look at it and say, oh, we don't actually have this in stock, and they're going to cancel my order, and I'm not going to think anything of it. And Chris, I think I reached out to you immediately, and I was like, dude, you're not going to believe this. And you're like, no, I don't believe this.
I didn't.
And you're like, man, why didn't I? If I would have seen that, I would have jumped all over it. And I'm like, and I'm still kind of like, what do I do? What do I do? And it took, I would say, probably a good 2 days for Big Bad Toy Store to acknowledge the order. And it was kind of sitting there processing, pending. And I'm like, they're going to decline it. And then a couple days later, I think it was 3 days later, it finally shipped. And I'm like, no way. And I'm still like, all right, I can't tell anybody yet, because I don't know what condition this is going to be in when I get it. You know, substandard grade. I've gotten stuff from there before, substandard grade, and it was good enough that I was able to wrap it up as a Christmas present for my son before. And it would look just like it was on a retail shelf. I mean, their substandard grade is like, TC, I think you were saying, would be like mint and seal box to Sideshow.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So it arrives, and I'm like, this is really happening. And then I posted some photos on our group, and I unboxed it. Basically, I didn't want to do a video live, but I unboxed it. I opened it up. I'm like, one of the corners was a little kind of banged in a little bit, but I looked at the shipper, and I'm like, it's just the outside. And I'm like, this is legit. And I'm like, all right, what do I do? And as Chris knows, he's been kind of like, oh, geez, like, oh man, I wish I would have seen that. And I'm like, all right, it kind of sealed it right there. And I'm like, as much as I could use this as an opportunity to turn a profit for a figure that I already have, for a figure that I sold a head sculpt, and I've sold a stand and some other stuff, I'm like, this type of opportunity just doesn't come around. I mean, that figure is going for insane money on groups, on eBay for used. And this is brand new. The seal was still on it. So I opened it up just to double check. And, you know, just the normal wear and tear from an Iron Man figure. None of them really ever arrive like pristine condition, just because the way that they're shipped. And sometimes they're the paint ship and how they make it weathered and whatnot. Perfect. Nothing wrong with it. So I reached out to my good friend. I said, do you want it? And So that's the long story that came to it, as I decided to help out a friend versus being really evil and trying to turn that. But guys, I still can't even believe that happened. Like, I don't know. I've been trying to figure out like what happened. Did somebody have it like in their pile of loot and just decided they didn't want it because maybe Big Bad reach out to them and say, hey, the last one we have that we want to send to you, it's actually substandard. And maybe the person was like, nah, I don't even want it. Or it definitely wasn't a return because it had not been opened. That. Yeah. You guys got any theories?
I think that it might have gotten lost. Like, it might have just gotten stuck in a corner somewhere, because if it wasn't someone's pile of loot, it's been almost 2 years since they've had that figure in stock. So I don't know how long they hold their pile of loots for, but how long they allow customers to hold that. But it just seems like it just got lost. And I know on Sideshow about a year ago, they had the same thing happen with some War Machines, some War Machine Mark III. And it's the same thing. They had like extra stock, and it just was so random that you just think that maybe it just got lost in the shuffle. That's my opinion on it.
I'm right there with you. I think either it got tucked behind something or moved around, or who knows how their warehouse and stuff is set up. They're cleaning out an area. It's just crazy. It's crazy. And in true scavenger fashion, a scavenger wins. I'm very grateful to Bryan for presenting this opportunity to grab this figure. It's awesome. I mean, it goes to show that don't leave any stone unturned, because as it is in any kind of collecting area, whether it's Hot Toys, vintage Star Wars, vintage whatever you're hunting. I mean, even like, stuff at retail, there's that time when you find the figure that's tucked behind, something in a different aisle that you were looking for. There's stuff like that out there. So, I mean, after this podcast, maybe people will be scouring the internet for all those deals. But TC, I think you mentioned some other retailers online, and I know Matt and some other people in our groups, they check, there's a lot of smaller websites that might have this older stock, and you just never know when they're going to have a sale or just try to blow stuff out. It's definitely worth hunting, everywhere you can think of. Crazy.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, so, not that we're going to get into tips quite yet, but I mean, yeah, you said it. You said it right, Chris. I know I've been talking to Allison recently, and, I was able to help her out with a Doctor Strange effect. The one she got from Sideshow arrived broken, and they didn't even want to try to replace it for her. They said, send the whole figure back. And she's like, no, I don't want to do that. It's just this. And I'm like, I'm never going to use it. I sent it to her, and she's like, you're so appreciative. I love Allison. She's a great part of our community. And I was like, you know what? That's what scavengers do. Like, scavengers are like the Goonies.
That's right. Hey, man, Hot Toys needs to get that license.
Oh, hey, you guys. Yeah. All right. As the podcast has already gotten off the rails here, guys, TC, Chris, let's get into news. Like I said, I'm still kind of in disbelief. Even telling that story now, I'm like, that didn't really happen. But yeah, I would just say, try that. Try just going on Big Bad Toy Store occasionally. It can't hurt. I mean, you'll be surprised. And is that gonna happen? Maybe ever again? Who knows? But like TC said, sometimes it pops up on Sideshow, and if you've missed something out in the past, it can take just a minute out of your day, and I literally felt like I won the lottery. It was like that's like the type of thing that like never happens to me. I'm never in the right place at the right time. And I almost froze. I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? And then I'm like, okay, before I do anything, I'm like, this could be gone in an instant. Like I gotta be the one to grab it. I'd rather pay for it myself and then worry about it afterwards than run the risk of, oh my God, guys, either in an admin chat or to one of you individually or to the group, and like, hey guys, like I don't know. It's weird.
No,
Sorry, my bad.
No, it's all right. I totally get it. I mean, worst case scenario, like if nobody in the admin group wanted it and you got it, I mean, you could have sold it to anybody, you could have returned it. I mean, it is one of those things. I've been there before with certain things. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe this is available right now. Like, and you just gotta go with your gut and just jump on it if it's there.
All right, guys. Go ahead, TC.
Say one thing real quick is like on Big Bad Toy Store, rightfully so. You bought that because people on there are like hawks. I mean, on anytime I pre-order, like an extra pre-order of like say Captain Marvel or something comes up and they're like one extra one, it's gone within minutes. So the fact that you did that was the right move. I wouldn't have done it any other way.
Yeah,
adding to the tips right there.
Exclamation point. That was the hidden tip number 3 from TC for later. All right, guys, let's talk about the Spider-Man Scarlet Spider suit from Marvel's Spider-Man, the PS4 game. VGM 34 from their video game line, retailing for $251, went up for pre-order last week. Estimated arrival is this July through September, and as we talked about on the Assemble, it's already gone waitlist. So it was waitlist when we talked about this on Friday evening. There's been quite a lot of speculation, TC, on a lot of the communities out there, including our own, on like what that could mean. Personally, TC, I think the person that probably had it nailed the best was PJ the Paradox Nerd. Great YouTube channel, by the way, great part of the community. That it feels like a parallel to Darkseid Anakin, TC, and that's what.
I mean, I can see that. The issue is Darkseid Anakin was almost like a reissue of the regular Anakin. So I guess people already had some orders in. And I also don't know where Anakin stacks up in the Star Wars world versus Spider-Man. I know Spider-Man's a top 3 Marvel character at the very least. So, and I know there's a huge fan base for the Ben Reilly version of Spider-Man. I don't know if the consumer demand is as high for Anakin as it will be for this Scarlet Spider. So I'm thinking it might be a little different, but I do think, like PJ said, there will be more stock coming. It just might take a little while.
Yeah, it's tough to say. It's kind of, for us, it's kind of uncharted territory for a Marvel character to do this, to go waitlist within 24 hours. So I don't know. Spider-Man being one of the most popular superhero characters in the world definitely adds to this. And like we talked on the Assemble, it's like, there's a lot of video game. I mean, that video game's huge. And there's a lot of people that collect that also play the game. And there's a lot of crossover there. So I don't know. I hope it's available for more people to get.
I think it also just illustrates the fact that, like, I think back when we started the podcast, we would have told people like, hey, maybe it's not as important to have a day one pre-order, be patient, do your budget and everything. Guys, I almost feel like now, like you got to know, like, pretty much right off the bat, kind of how you feel about some of these exclusives and stuff, because I mean, I know our buddy Mark Pearson gave me grief because, I originally posted this and I'm like, well, it's probably a pass for me. And then Mark goes, I waited through the comments to find, how long it took Fontaine to change his mind about it. And I did. I mean, it was like one of those ones, the more I looked at it, I'm like, this is really growing on me. I really, and I didn't play the game, as I mentioned on the Assemble. I didn't know a whole lot about the character itself and comics. Allison did a fantastic job, giving a little bit of the backstory to Ben Reilly. You have to know right off the bat, but I don't think it's as quick, like, back to Infinity War where we had the Captain America movie promo, that I thought was going to go quick and it didn't. And then as I guess we can talk about now, TC, The Spider-Man Far From Home reissue, that went waitlist already. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on here.
Pretty crazy. You just don't know what Hot Toys is thinking. We don't know anything about the inside process of the way the what they think that their production is going to be, or what they plan on their production numbers being. It's all a mystery. Yeah, going back to the Scarlet Spider just real quick, I guess with PJ, I guess I was disagreeing with him more on the aspect of Darkseid Anakin, how it's sat. I don't think the Spider will, but I do think that they'll meet production. But yeah, to the Far From Home line, I'm not really sure about that one either, because usually pre-orders last a good several months at least. So it is very odd.
These are different times. Hot Toys collecting has changed drastically from when Bryan and I first started prior to Infinity War. It's been these ups and downs and these crazy waves of trends and that sort of thing. And this is just the latest. These figures going waitlist pretty quick. It'll be interesting to see how things play out. I would think that Far From Home figure, I think they would make more available. I just, you reissue a figure and then you only, sell a few of them. Like,
do you think they closed the production line down already, or it's just so hard to tell anything?
So I thought I had heard a rumor saying that there was only going to be a limited amount of those available. For some reason, I heard something as low as like 2,000, but I think that seems way too low. Mm-hmm. And I really wish I could remember where I saw that. And hopefully I'm not just pulling that out of thin air, but and it's kind of I don't know. I still feel like the people that wanted it had the opportunity to grab it. There are still probably a few collectors that were maybe waiting a little bit on it because they were like, oh, it's a reissue. I don't necessarily have to run out and grab it immediately. And now seeing it on waitlist. I mean, as I will say, though, it does not cost you anything to join a waitlist, and it can't hurt to get on there. And the earlier you get on a waitlist, the more apt you are to see it converted. So we've seen in our group people have success with waitlists. We've seen people just strike out, but you don't lose anything. So definitely with that. But yeah, I know we covered the Scarlet Spider a lot more in depth on the assemble. But oh man, I love the look, guys. I love the suit material. Like the bottom, for some reason, I feel like the feet on it, like the bottom of the soles, just it looks so cool. I mean, I can't wait to have that in my collection. Oops. Kind of talking about the collection update already, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to that and seeing what else we might get similar to that.
It's got some great accessories for sure.
Oh yeah,
pizza, camera, all Bryan's favorites.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Once I get this figure, all of our listeners can probably expect to see that stuff out on eBay. Contact me if any of those things look like there's something you might like. An iPhone, I'm not sure I would just light with that. Vice versa.
I just can't believe the camera has, the strap of the camera has little spider faces on it. Like, it's just nuts. It's nuts. I think for me, the biggest thing is the contrast of the colors on this figure, like that bright red with that kind of aqua blue vest sweatshirt kind of thing. And he's got like military belt, like camo belt and stuff. I mean, it's just cool. I don't really know much about the character. I mean, I've known about him since the 90s, but he's never really like drawn me in. But for some reason, this figure is really hitting it out of the park for me.
All right, let's talk about another figure we've already talked about in the assemble with Star-Lord, but that's MMS 539, again retailing for $251. Estimated arrival is October 2020 to December 2020. I feel like this helps kind of suppress the aftermarket for the Guardians of the Galaxy 2 figure. Was going for a lot of money. I know we talked about on the assemble with Matt. He was able to hook up Gare Bear, and looks like a couple days ago, Gare was able to show pictures of that. And to me, that is a good way to acquire the figure, because you're gonna have it in hand almost 15 months before anybody else, and it is Chris, it is pretty similar to what we got. And I know you've got that figure. And I also will say, I just, in general, I feel like with Star-Lord, you either love him or you just don't really care for him. He just is kind of a weird character. I mean, a lot of people blame him for Infinity War. They took those Endgame posters and, with the Avengers thing and like Avenge the Fallen. And it's like, it's all your fault.
Oh, man. Yeah, that was surprising, the backlash that Star-Lord got after Infinity War. But I can see where people are coming from. It's kind of too bad. Hopefully he, can redeem himself as a character, going forward. He was okay in Endgame. Didn't have a big role. No, I hear you with getting this figure. People can kind of plan ahead that they know they're going to get a Star-Lord. They don't have to pay $400, $450. I mean, I didn't even know he was going for that much because I got him at retail and I hadn't really been looking. And then people started posting what Guardians of the Galaxy 2 Star-Lord was going for. And I was like, holy cow. Like, some of these figures, just as soon as they sell out, they just they skyrocket. But I don't know. I mean, the figure looks good and everything. I don't really have any complaints. It's just not really, at this point right now with my collection, I don't really feel like I need more than one Star-Lord. We'll see once I get things set up down the line. But I don't know. Or TC, are you in on this? Are you out on this figure?
I'm out. Not because I think it's a bad figure. I think it's actually a good release. I do like it when Hot Toys releases more figures on the Avengers line. But I'm not a big Star-Lord fan. I never really have been. I think Chris Pratt's, plays the character really well. But as far as, he doesn't rank amongst my top 5, 6, 7 Avengers, if he's even an Avenger. But, it's a good figure. I mean, I like it for the people that, don't have the Guardians of the Galaxy 2 version. It helps complete the line, especially for people who want to complete that Infinity War line. It's a great line, and it just got a little bigger. And hey, it's going to be for some people, a lot of collectors probably.
Definitely.
All right, TC, this is a prediction that you got right on the assemble, and we brought you right back into the podcast to talk about this with what we thought were going to be some of the San Diego Comic-Con exclusives. But that Iron Man Neon Tech 2.0, the kind of the black and red, or as Mila called it, like the Steelers colors, that I think it was April 1st. It was right when the Markel was released in Hong Kong. I think that's when they started showing some of the images of it. We didn't really hear anything until just now. And I think somebody in our, it's going around a lot of the groups now where if you look on the Sideshow website, it actually says like, hey, we're going to have this available. And, if you pre-order, you'll be able to pick it up. So, TC, what are we thinking about this one? I mean, it feels a lot like this one's based off the Mark 6 armor. The Neon Tech 1.0 is kind of based off the Mark 4. People went gaga for that. I think people picked up extras thinking they were going to sell it for double. And just, I don't think the market ever materialized for that one.
No, it didn't. I actually bought into the hype last October. It was at New York Comic Con. I think was when they handed out all the, I guess the tickets, and then
you're right. Yeah.
So I bought one on eBay for $50 and ended up not needing to do that, but I ended up getting the figure, and it's a cool figure. This year it seems like they're doing it a little differently. I don't know if it'll make it to New York Comic Con. It's going to be an SDCC exclusive. And they're not doing the tickets, so it's going to be all online. So I don't even know how to judge whether or not there's going to be any leftovers. I don't know if I may just not go for it, because if it's an SDCC exclusive and, you have to pick it up there, I don't really have a means to do that. And I don't know how popular it's going to be or how many they're going to make. Who knows? Last year was a little bit more concrete because they had 2,000 tickets for sure. You knew their run was 2,000. I don't know about this year. We'll see. But it's a nice looking figure. Nice color scheme.
From what I understand, the pre-order is going to go up, I think, tomorrow, which would as a time of recording, is going to be June 20th. I think that's the date. And it's going to start in the afternoon. So check Sideshow's website and the post with that Neon Tech Iron Man to get the specifics. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you could get our buddy Matt, or to pick it up. Or
Yeah.
yeah.
I was actually debating on asking him. I'm 50-50 on it because there's just so much stuff. We're not even, the Mark 7 has not been released. The War Machine Mark 4 has not been released.
Yeah.
You've got Bucky.
So much.
You have not only that, then there's all the other characters, Ant-Man, Wasp. I don't know what
Shuri. Everybody's like
all those characters. So it's too much. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna do it. I might wait and see how the market responds. Maybe you can snag a deal a year from now or something.
Yeah. What was the price for the one last year? What was the retail? Do you know?
I think it was $385. So
$385.
Pretty standard for
and I don't think it came with a head sculpt, so that's kind of
no
what probably knocked the cost down. I mean, guys, some of the figures that are coming up that are going to make collectors like ourselves have those tough decisions. I mean, none of us have just infinite disposable income to just get every single figure. I mean, we really have to be scavengers about it. And we've got we just saw in Hong Kong releases for the Spider-Man advanced suit. Our friend PJ, the Paradox Nerd, already has his unboxing and review up. Definitely check that out. I know I did. And I'm strongly considering that. And that was not one that was on my radar before. I'm kind of waiting for some rewards to kick in for a lot of the figures that I've got recently. I don't feel like I need to run out and pre-order that one like immediately because it's not an exclusive. It's not part of the traditional MCU. So I'm trying to be patient about it, trying to do the smart thing. But I'm also like TC, as you and I have chatted about too. It's like, geez, well, if I get that one, what does that do for the Spider-Punk? I actually feel like the Spider-Punk, just by existing at the same time as this other one, I've seen a couple chatter conversations in other groups and stuff about like, geez, I wasn't looking at the Spider-Punk before, but now it's like maybe that looks a little bit more enticing, and I'm just like, oh God, what am I doing to myself?
Slippery slope. That advanced suit Spider-Man, especially watching PJ's videos and like super high def, it looks great. And I know there's been some other reviews. Justin's collection, he's done a review, and a number of other great YouTube reviewers. I mean, definitely check all those videos out.
Figure Collecting for Dummies.
Yes.
Yep.
Jenkin Wong,
who's just subscribed to our channel. Glad to have him tuning in, and I really liked his review. He's got a great review style, as well. And I'm really strongly considering it, just based on his review and PJ's. And so we'll see. I haven't made any like 1 a.m. bad decisions yet, but the night is still young, my friends.
Yes, it is.
The thing about that one that's interesting is I didn't hear much complaining about the prototype. I mean, I wasn't in love with the prototype, but it's just interesting. It just goes to show how much Hot Toys, they do care. They're almost a monopoly in the 1/6 world at this point, but they still go back to the drawing board and they still will fix things that they deem, not proper. And it's just, it was a great release, and the final product was, it's amazing.
No pun intended.
Drink.
Yeah.
So TC, I know that we also talked about the Darth Maul release. I know we were talking with you earlier, and you said you've checked out quite a bit of those reviews. How have those reviews changed your opinion of that Hong Kong release now?
Oh, I always thought it was going to be a good release. It's interesting because I feel Star Wars fans, they deserve this kind of release. So they get the DX. Not only do they get the DX, it comes with the speeder, and then on top of that, Hot Toys pretty much comes up with a masterpiece of a figure. You got the tunics, the black tunic, and the black cloak, so you don't have to worry about any kind of paint, crossing over, causing issues there. The hands are black, the sculpt's sick. It's just a great figure that's built to last, and the articulation's there. The only place where it's really not is on the boots, but the boots are sculpted, so I mean, you have to give and take a little bit, but it's just a great figure for, I know a lot of Star Wars fans. It's, you know, it's right at the top of the list. So, you know, bravo and congratulations to them. I'm probably going to pass, but it's a great figure.
I definitely am. Like you said, I'm super glad. I did have this on pre-order at one point before I completely changed how I collect and what I collect. And I'm really looking forward to getting that stateside. I looked at the Sideshow website earlier and it still said it was October. I think it might end up being a little bit sooner than that, but I also haven't seen anybody get any of those infamous emails saying, hey, it's arriving early either.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if that figure shows up early. Hopefully it does for the collectors that got him. I know Matt's really excited. Roy's really excited. It just looks like masterpiece of a figure. The likeness to Ray Park, Darth Maul is just spot on. And like you said, TC, the tunic, the cloth, the clothing. Oh man, they just really nailed
wiring.
that.
They have the wiring in the clothing. And then if you get the speeder version, you can have him post up with his double-sided lightsaber and right in front of the speeder. It just would look epic if it's, you know, part of your collection. So it's just great.
It would be awesome if Hot Toys could make some more smaller vehicles like that, you know, for Star Wars, Marvel, other lines. It's just, it gives that added dimension to your display, and the way they, you know, they sculpt those and get all the minute details. Oh man, it just looks great.
All right, let's go rapid fire with some of the remaining news items. So we've got, unfortunately, some of us got this email. I was completely flabbergasted by it, but the Iron Man Mark 43, which was going to come out this summer, got pushed back almost like 6 months back to February 2020 for a reissue. So I don't know if that means they just had some, I don't know if that meant they have some difficulties or whatnot, or, you know, getting that production going again. Chris, as you and I talked, it's not the worst thing in the world, because I feel like it gives me a little bit of breathing room that I would have been fine, but I now can sit a little bit more comfortable. And I think both you and we had that on a payment plan. And I know that I think I just converted mine to a one-time payment just so, because I don't think Sideshow updates payment plan. So it would have still like been paid off within like 2 or 3 months, but then I still wouldn't have gotten the figure for a while. So I just said, I'm like, you know what? If it's going to get delayed, I'm just going to push that off. I've paid about half of it so far. I'll just get the rest of it, you know, next year.
Yeah, same here. I had about half paid off. I think they would probably, I think the way it works is they leave the last payment sitting there until it shows up. TC, is that right? I can't remember.
Yeah, they will. Yeah, you just won't pay until it shows up if it's your last payment.
Yeah. So, yep, I got the delay there. Then we also, a few figures have shown up in stock at Sideshow. We got Thanos, Black Panther, and the single Hall of Armor is apparently in stock at Sideshow. So that's good to see. People can get that stuff hopefully pretty quickly if they make an order. And then, Brian, you noticed this.
The Neo went waitlist.
Yeah.
Which obviously we don't cover a lot of stuff outside of Star Wars and Marvel on this particular podcast. I know that that's a figure that, you know, a lot of people have enjoyed. I see it posted very frequently on Instagram and a lot of different other groups. So, you know, again, if you're on the fence waiting for that one, grab it. I've also seen some people get some deals on eBay recently. You know, I think it's a figure that will hold value. I just don't see it ever going for like crazy money afterwards. I could be completely wrong. And then finally, just because as I don't necessarily know if I was a horrible moderator during the Assemble last time, but we didn't really cover any third-party figures. There was a whole ton of them that came out recently. Steve's going to get everybody caught up next Assemble. We're not going to talk about it here. Our apology of sorry we didn't cover any of it.
Yeah, he's going to have more to add to the list by the time next Friday comes around, which will be another good conversation. Look forward to that.
Yeah, and just like I said on the Assemble, he does such a good job. I think, you never know how somebody has it until you walk in their shoes a little bit, and all the prep that goes into it, and then making sure you've got 5 and 6 people the amount of time, equal time to talk. It's hard, but it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a good time. You did a great job filling in, but I think Steve is itching to get back in behind the camera there.
Yeah, and I'm more than happy to give it back to him. I'm busy enough.
That's his software too.
Oh yeah, like I said, he does an awesome job. All right, guys. Chris, you and I usually give a collection update. We don't have as exciting time as we've had recently. Both you and I, as we mentioned, we both got the pre-order in for the Scarlet Spider. That was my one pre-order. I did do some unfortunate, I just grabbing, like, I'm flipping ones in the air, giving back my non-refundable deposits back to Sideshow, but I ended up deciding to basically go for the Scarlet Spider over getting a duplicate Spider-Man movie promo, gave that one back, and ultimately decided the Wasp and Ant-Man that I had, even though I had used like the $25 coupons that Sideshow was giving, I gave those back just because, although I like the characters, I just hope that they get better costumes with future releases. And I wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of that movie in particular, and I'm kind of hoping that we get like an Ant-Man from Endgame. But if I don't, I don't. I have the Ant-Man from Civil War, so it's not like I don't have an Ant-Man in my collection. So I don't like giving money away, but sometimes it opens up opportunities to get other figures. The one kind of purchase, guys, that I got recently on the tail end of getting the Iron Patriot and the War Machine Mark II from Age of Ultron. I also tracked down the very elusive to me Iron Man 3 Hot Rod, the Mark 22. And Chris, you and I have been talking recently, like, we probably could have gotten that figure each probably in like the mid 200s or so, like maybe 6-8 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's much more expensive now. And I will say, though, I really like the paint scheme for it. It is essentially a repaint of the Iron Patriot, if it makes you feel any better. It even has the little star emblem on his chest. They didn't even bother to change that out. I just love that look of the figure. And I mean, technically, guys, that the Mark 22, although it's an Iron Man Mark figure, it's actually, it even says that it's a War Machine prototype. So it fits in nicely with that. That was kind of my one excuse a while ago for not getting it for my Iron Man collection. But now that I'm kind of tracking down some of the War Machines, it fit in nicely with that.
Yeah, I really wish I picked that figure up. Like you said, a few months back. I'll have to go over to the museum, Les Fontaines, to check that out. But great looking figure. I'm glad you picked him up.
Yeah, and then finally, Chris, before I shoot it over to you, I took a day off from work recently, and I kind of went through and reorganized my collection. I took another pass through to figure out, do I have anything else that I have that I'm not displaying that I could sell? And I really took a hard look at it, and basically most of like the Iron Man stands that I have, because I don't display them, I try to balance them as best I can in my DTOF. But I mean, I had the Civil War big stand, the Mark 45 stand, I had the Black Panther light stand. What else? I still have the Doctor Strange Sanctum Sanctorum background out there that nobody's jumped on yet, but I still have that on eBay. And then just a lot of other like just basic stands and stuff in general, and a couple other knick-knacky accessories and stuff. But it was kind of funny. I looked at it afterwards and I'm like, it really added up pretty quickly to basically almost another figure. And we've talked about it recently. It's like sometimes you have that hidden value in your collection that and the big if is if you are comfortable with parting things out and not going to have like OCD of, oh my God, my figure's not complete. It really can help you out, stretch your budget even further. Use your collection as a form of currency, as we've said.
Yeah, when I went over your place, it was Hot Toys accessories strewn about in your living room. It was crazy. All kinds of good stuff. I was like picking through. I'm like, could I use this? Could I use that? But no, it's good to move that stuff. And I'll talk about some of the stuff that I've been doing in the hot toy realm. So I pre-ordered the Advanced Suit Spider-Man. That was one. I had actually pre-ordered it prior to it getting released, and I had no idea. I just kept on looking at that figure, and I really liked the way it looked, the prototype, and then literally like a week and a half later, it gets released, and I'm like, holy crap! I didn't expect it to come out this quickly, but love the look of that figure. Even though I'm not a gamer, I don't play the game. I probably won't ever play the game. I'll just watch videos of other people playing the game on YouTube. Brian said I did pre-order the Scarlet Spider. I got in that 24-hour window, got him locked down, and then as I was over Brian's house, I finally was able to pick up the Civil War Falcon that he had snagged for me, and really loving that figure. I got to get that thing out in the photo booth. I got to take some pictures. I want to see that wingspan. One other thing, I finally assembled my Infinity War Tony Stark nano suit from Super MC Toys, and I had gotten a narrow shoulder body from TNS Figures, and it worked pretty decent. I like the look of the figure. The quality of the suit's great. I used the head sculpt from the Mark 50, so I was kind of waiting until that figure came in to use that head sculpt. But yeah, that's a neat little companion piece to the Mark L. But getting back to accessories and stuff, I saw all those accessories out on Brian's table, and I'm like, maybe I should see what I have that I wouldn't mind parting with. And I started digging into some of my figures, and some of the ones I got for relatively good prices last year that are not crazy desirable, but they've got some unique bases. So I sold my base from Dark World Thor light armor version, got pretty good money for that, sold a couple other bases, and it's kind of cool how this community works. And I was selling some of the pieces from the Infinity War Black Widow, the duplicate figure I'd bought. I had removed the entire suit, and guy messaged me. He's like, hey man, like, this is the exact suit I've been looking for. Like, I really want it. Would you do a package deal with some of the other items that you've got for sale? So we worked out a deal, and he was like, hey man, like, I'm a customizer. I've been trying to put together my ultimate version of Black Widow, which it's basically, I think he used an aftermarket head sculpt, but it's a really good looking head sculpt of Black Widow, Scarlett Johansson. And then he used the Infinity War suit, put together some of the accessories, and I definitely recommend everyone check out his YouTube and his Instagram. It's at iron_geek_37. He's got some really cool images. He does customizing. He does 3D design. He's got all kinds of things going on. So I really recommend you check out his stuff and give him a like and subscribe. And hopefully he checks out the podcast, and we can help him out in any way possible going forward. But so that's kind of what I had going on. I don't know what else. I might have missed something here or there, but those are the key points.
We usually make it interesting. So TC, I don't want to leave you out, my friend. Did you get anything recently you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, I don't. It kind of sucks, but at one point I did own a few of these Civil War figures, but I don't own any right now, and I don't plan on going back and picking up many of them. But I do have the concept Iron Man. I do have the concept Cap based off of Civil War, and so I wanted to add one piece to, I guess, the duo right there. and that was the Civil War War Machine Mark III. And I know it's been out of production for a long time. It has a kind of a heavy aftermarket price, but I had actually told Chris I had sold one of my prize baseball cards and got a pretty penny for that. So that easily funded it. I was able to acquire that because the War Machine Mark III is awesome. So, I mean, you have the Mark I and the Mark II. It's like they had a baby and then they developed the Mark III. And it's got the bulk, but it's also streamlined, and it's just timeless. So I'm happy to add that one to the collection for sure. I used to actually own it a few years ago before I stopped collecting Hot Toys for a bit. Glad to have it back. So that's the big one that I've added. I also got some new Infinity War stands that Brian Fontaine graciously sent my way. I contacted him about potentially purchasing a Captain America Infinity War stand because I'm trying to add some more Infinity War stands to the collection because you can stack them, so you can kind of build like a taller base, and it looks pretty good, and so it keeps the collection looking nice, but it also allows for visibility if you have multiple rows on a shelf with figures. So when you're looking at the figures, you don't just see the front figures only; you can see the ones in the back row because they're elevated. Brian graciously sent me 7 of them, so I'm able to create my display as I wish. So appreciate that, Brian.
Happy to help. I started looking and I'm like, well, you asked for 1 and I've got 2, and then I'm like, well, I've got the Black Widow, I've got the Iron Spider, Doctor Strange, Groot, Thor. I had sold the Rocket one separately. Somebody had wanted that one. Maybe if they wanted to pair that with their Guardians 2 one and still have basically the Infinity War figure. So I didn't have that one, but I just we as a lot of our listeners know, it's not always about extracting every dollar out of every situation. I get more joy out of helping somebody like yourself, TC, than trying to say, all right, I'm going to sell each of these for X dollars and blah blah blah. It's like, no, I'd rather just do that.
Yeah, and I really do appreciate that. And I've already got dibs on the Bucky and War Machine Mark IV stands. Should you be parting ways with those in the future?
Deal. I'll instantly grab them and I'll just drop them in the mail to you.
Well, thank you very much.
All right, guys. That is a really good update. So TC, I know we've already had a long episode here, but I don't mind. It's a great conversation. So, as we mentioned at the top of the episode, TC, you've been collecting longer than both Chris and I, even though we're much older than you, which age is just a number. And you had even just said something very interesting, and I knew this about you before, but you mentioned kind of coming in and out of the hobby a little bit, and then even having things. We all collect things outside of Hot Toys. I mean, we're not just Hot Toys only. And you mentioned collecting baseball cards, and if I stand correctly, like Mike Trout is one of the guys that you have collected and collected in the past, and just kind of I know you've kind of learned some things. You've probably had some success, some regrets and stuff, but anything like that our fellow scavengers could really benefit from that maybe Chris and I haven't covered before?
Yeah, I had 2 things, but I'm actually just going to skip to one because the first one's it's generic. It's about everyone. It's about going into the hunt. So I'm going to skip that one though because I feel that's everyone tends to hunt for those old figures and it's fun. So, but a little more I guess serious one was I actually started collecting Hot Toys back in 2015. So I was 24, 25 then, and not just out of school, but about a year removed from grad school. And so I saw them and I was like, oh my gosh, these things are amazing. So the first ones I'd gotten were the Han Solo and the Chewie. And then quickly I added, the Iron Man Mark III. And then a little bit later, this was a little bit before, I guess, Civil War came out as well, Battling Cat. And then you've got the Mark 43, the Mark 42, not just the regular 42 diecast, but the one that was specifically released for the China flagship Hot Toys store. So that's kind of a rare one that you can't find anymore. And then just several other ones. I kind of amassed a decent sized collection of probably like 15 to 20 figures. The problem is I was renting a 1-bedroom, not apartment, but a 1-bedroom within a friend's house. So I had 1 bedroom for all the figures. It had one little closet in it. And so basically, of course, I need to put clothes in the closet and a couple other storage items in there. And so I had boxes on the ground. I had boxes under my futon/bed. I didn't have anywhere to put this stuff. And not to mention, I'm just out of school on my first job. So I don't really have the funding to really collect at that kind of pace. After a while, I did get burnt out. And I know that's something that comes up, sometimes, but, with Hot Toys, you need space, but, you also need, the funding, and they're not cheap. When you're young, when you don't really have when you're not settled in, when you're constantly on the move and you're constantly trying to, find your next job or find your next place you're going to rent to live, it's kind of difficult to collect. So if I had done it over, I would have just, rather than trying to keep up or constantly go for the newest thing, pick a couple of the items you really like. Because had I done that, I probably wouldn't have sold off everything just to kind of break loose. I probably would have kept a few of the items. So maybe I keep the Mark 43 or the Mark 42 exclusive or battling cap. And so today, instead of, me transitioning in and out, from different hobbies, maybe I still have some of those pieces. Over the course of a few years, what might start out as something small, the 3-4 figures, you do 3-4 figures for 3-4 years, all of a sudden you got 16, and you just go from there. So that was something I learned. And had I, you can't really, hindsight's 2020. And when you're younger, you don't really have the foresight, but having now collected for several years, I've realized it's okay to collect at your own pace, because things can change sometimes overnight. Maybe you do end up getting a house, or maybe you get a new job, that kind of thing that allows you to collect, more of what you want. But it's just, it's okay to step back and kind of assess, where you are. And then going forward, you can make adjustments as necessary. So it was just one of the big things I've learned. Also, it's just best to just collect what you really enjoy, because at the end of the day, Hot Toys is not going anywhere. There's always going to be another figure. They're only growing. So there's no point to get wrapped up in the hype on one figure. Just collect what you really enjoy. And I think you'll be better off, and you'll probably enjoy the hobby a lot more.
Just drop the mic. That's all you need to do.
Yeah. I know. That's it. Boom. Yeah.
It's awesome. And yeah, I'm just nodding here to everyone. I didn't want to interject to what you were talking about there, but I mean, yeah, it's true there. And even what you said too about Hot Toys not going anywhere. I think we all, just by nature of even the small group that we have, and we all try to get things out and share the information that we have as soon as we get it. And then, I mean, we're all human. Any new thing that comes out, it's exciting. And it's like, oh, is this something I want to get? This is a figure I love. Is there going to be a lot of hype about this? But I think, what you say, and others have said this too. It's really, and it's even kind of like, PJ the Paradox Nerd's tagline is like, collect what you love. And you really can't go wrong if you do that. Right. I myself, if I could go back over a year from now when I started collecting, way before we did the podcast, I would not have gotten some of the figures I did, just because they either had they had good reviews or they were popular and stuff, because those are the figures I haven't held on to. If it wasn't something that initially drew me in, those are ones that have cycled out of my collection. Outside of poor Star Wars figures that just, had the Midnight Massacre.
Those poor Star Wars figures. But I can't even, thinking back to where I was at when I was 24, 25, and if I had gotten into Hot Toys, it would have been bad. Well,
Chris, let's be honest. When you and I were 24, 25, Hot Toys didn't even exist.
Yeah. They were a twinkle in Howard Chan's eye. Yeah, no, I think when did they start? I forget, 2002 or something like that, or 2000.
Yeah, something like that.
2008 was the first Marvel stuff, but
Yeah.
yeah, they had other licenses before that.
Yeah, so I mean, I was, man, I think I came into this area of the hobby, or this area of collecting, at the right time in my life, with, established in a career and a little bit of extra money and that sort of thing, that it fit into my budget. It's I mean, geez, it feels like forever ago when we were talking about budget and all that stuff. I mean, it's huge. It's huge. And it's, like you said, it's really easy to get caught up in the hype, get caught up what's next. So great advice, man. And hopefully some of our listeners and group members can take that to heart.
Yeah, maybe one or two. We'll see. Yeah, hopefully. It's it just opens your eyes, just because,
well, you got to be realistic too.
You have to be realistic, and you can never keep up. Like, there's always going to be somebody with more. There's always going to be another figure released. So it's just keep it real and just collect what you like you guys said.
All right, guys, let's finally talk about the Markel, the Iron Man Mark 50. As I guess, no, I was gonna tell the backstory why we called it the Markel, but I think people in our group know exactly why that started. As I don't necessarily think as a something trolling something or somebody, but it has stuck, and we're gonna stick with it. So guys, feature figure review, audio only. We don't have video here. The Iron Man Mark 50, Avengers Infinity War, MMS 473, D23, retail for $407. This was one of the first Avengers Infinity War figures available for pre-order March 2nd, 2018. Took 13 months to hit Hong Kong, April 1st, 2019. Not an April Fool's Day joke. And it slowly started to trickle out in the United States. Gosh, when did we get this, guys? The end of May, early June. Mm-hmm. Some people got it a little bit before that. I guess we'll go around the table here first. I know, Chris, I know your answer, but I'm not quite sure of TC's. This was by far not a day one pre-order for me. I don't even think I ordered this until around October-ish, maybe like when Sideshow was doing the Spooktacular. I mean, part of it was I late in the year kind of shifted focus to being an Iron Man collector, but I know initially, even when the figure came out, I wasn't necessarily digging it. Some of the promo images at the time, I'm just like, I don't know. It was before the movie came out. It definitely was after the movie that came out that I was like, all right, I'm liking this a little bit more, but I'm still not sure about it. TC, when did you order yours?
I think I actually ordered on the same day. I think it came up in the Facebook group. October 30 was my date. Yeah, I didn't do it day one pre-order. I waited, and I got mine, in the second batch, but it's all good.
Yeah, it's funny. My order date is October 31st.
Wow.
So we literally probably all got around that same batch there.
Yeah.
So, thankfully that all worked out pretty well. And we all each have this in hand. This is actually one of the first times I think we've ever done a 3-person panel, and every single person has the figure and in front of themselves. Mm-hmm. So we're going to go through this and just talk about just overall aesthetic about it. We'll talk accessories. I guess we can't really talk about the figure without kind of mentioning the accessory pack on the way, but we obviously don't have that yet, so we can't really, air quotes, review that. But TC, as the guest joining us, I want to throw it over to you first. And before we really dig into some of the details here, just overall thoughts about the figure.
Overall thoughts, I mean, it looks really nice. It's like, I keep saying, it's like a Ferrari. I mean, the paint just shines off the body. It's really a special piece. The one thing I I do agree with some other reviewers is it doesn't have as much die cast in it. I'm pretty sure it might be because of the suit design. There might just not be as many places for it. I know with like the Mark IV and Mark VI, they're bigger and bulkier. But as far as design and as far as what Hot Toys did, I mean, they had to engineer this thing from scratch, just because of, all the accessory pack. So you have the detachable arms and the detachable legs, and you've got all kinds of articulation. You've got toe articulation, ankle articulation. The arms themselves, they lay down right next to the hips, so it looks natural. It's a really nice piece, and the head sculpt is awesome too. I know it's a reuse, but they painted the hair differently, and it just looks nice. I don't have any complaints, really. No big gripes.
I like that you compared it to a Ferrari, because someday I hope to own a Ferrari. This is the next best thing. It's the paint is what gets me for this figure. I just love this deep, like cherry or like candy apple paint. It's just like it really does pop. I do love the look overall. It's got a sleek design, and it is. I've heard some people say like anatomically it doesn't really. It may not technically work. Like if you look at the figure and stuff, for me it looks really good, and it'll look really nice set up with that Infinity War lineup. Same here, no real complaints overall, the grand scheme of things, but really digging this figure. How about you, Brian?
Yeah, I would agree. And TC, I'm glad you mentioned about like kind of like the shoulders and the arms looking really natural. For somebody like myself, that I tend to pose my Iron Man figures with like more of a museum pose, kind of, arms kind of, fists kind of turned in a little bit towards the hips, just looks like it would be in a Hall of Armor. And, I think, yeah, I would agree with some of the concerns people have had. I mean, the biggest thing I see about it is kind of the gap around the legs. But if you look at any of the Iron Man figures they've done in the past, they all have something similar. It might not be as pronounced, but trying to go for like a form-fitting design that actually is functional and posable, I got to give the engineers credit on how they pulled this one off. Kind of in particular there.
I mean, there are some things that I like. It's nitpicking, but after the 46, Hot Toys had gone to the shoulders that can swivel and move, the shoulder pads. So with the 4, the 6, and the 5, you can move out those shoulders, you can swivel them so you can hide the gaps, really well. They went back to the spring-loaded system on this one. Now, I don't know if that was, is it a budget thing or is it easier? I don't know why they would do that. But what they sacrificed there, they added on the bicep where you can articulate the arm well over 90 degrees, because the bicep has a kind of like a hinge that it can move when you curl that arm. So some places they're, I guess, pioneers. Other places they may have sacrificed a little, but overall, I mean, if you want Infinity War Iron Man, I mean, this is the figure to get. There's really no other figure in the market, regardless of scale.
The sheer amount of posability this figure has, you can really, I mean, the images that they have, the promo images, I mean, you can, with a little finagling, you can definitely recreate those. And then especially all the Instagrammers, the photographers, I mean, there's just been some amazing photography out there with this figure up against Thanos and, whatever it may be, but definitely some inspiration there to come up with a pretty cool pose.
Some of the highlights here, and I don't put batteries in. Chris, I know you don't have display space yet, and TC, I believe you also don't do the battery thing, but there's 21 LED light up points, kind of crazy. The hands that come with it. So I'm going to get into one of my gripes now with the hands. I would say the base fists that come, I still have it displayed with that. I like that the thumb is kind of out, and it's not like trying to like tuck the thumb in so they could really skimp out on the fist. There are the arms, so you can do kind of either the repulsor flying or also trying to blast from his hand. The articulated finger hands, I'm just going to say it, they're horrible. they're so splayed open, like you can't make a fist. And I can't see a pose where you would actually use those because it's so unnatural. It would be like you walking around with like your pinky and your thumb as far apart from each other as possible, and then you try to close your fingers around it. You're gonna look like you're making a little claw. I mean, it's I don't know. I mean, if I'm gonna complain about one thing, it's gonna be that.
It's unfortunate too. The fingers are extra long, and so like there will be a day when the hands that are stock, the rubber-based hands, they might fade. So it's unfortunate that when they do, or if they do, you're stuck with the articulated hands that kind of look weird, because then you're kind of caught in an odd place where you can't really display anything ideally anymore.
I mean, then the Markel is going to have spirit fingers, so.
Oh, that's true. Yes, you can do accessory pack. You can use that.
And the other thing too is like I can't blame them from the two blaster accessories that they have. They're just kind of uninspiring to me. I'm not going to display them. I mean, I think the accessory pack has much better arm accessories than that. To me, those are kind of forgettable. The head sculpt, I'm almost positive because I prior had the Mark 47 one before I sold that separately. And I feel like you mentioned TC. I think it's the same sculpt as that, just repainted. And instead of the eyes looking to the side, they're straight on, and it's got a slightly different paint. Like Chris, and I mentioned it before, I got the Super MC Nano Suit kit, and I think it looks fantastic. And that is actually one of my not like favorite figures in my collection now, but it definitely it fits in well. It doesn't look like it's an aftermarket figure at all. So I have no problem with the head sculpt whatsoever.
Yeah, I guess just want to add to that. You know, speaking of the head sculpt, so in previous Iron Man figures, when you try and take off the helmeted mask, it either leaves in the neck joint and it then becomes almost impossible to take out the neck joint. What they did with this one, you can easily rip out the face mask and it'll pop out the neck joint, you know, really simply, and you can pop in the head sculpt. So I actually have the head sculpt on my figure now, and it looks awesome. It's like perfectly sized. It looks really good.
That's a good point. I have a couple of my Iron Man figures. I cannot get that neck piece out, and I'm like, forget it. Like I'm not even. It's not even worth it to try to mess with it too much. I haven't really asked around or searched anything if there's any tips or tricks on getting that neck piece out, but it is not very user friendly. But that's good to know with this one. I haven't tried putting the head sculpt on the figure. Just looking at the promo images and stuff like that, it really does fit well with this figure.
I mean, that is kind of the figure in a nutshell. I mean, it is fantastic. You know, we'll as TC can definitely attest to, we do not come up with the review criteria in advance. Actually, TC, I think we mentioned it before on a prior episode, but you're actually the person that got us to adopt the 5-star system versus the 4 because of your college football fan roots. And we've done that ever since. So, you know, before we get into the review, we were also talking before we actually hit the record button tonight. And I was talking to both of you. And I'm trying to figure out not only how I would rate the figure individually, but out of the 11 Iron Man figures that I have, where would it rank? And I've got the 47, the 46, the 46 concept art, the 45, the 43, the 42, excuse me, the 4, 5, 6, 3, and then the 2. And the only one I don't have is we mentioned with the 43 that's already out, but it's technically a reissue. And I don't know, guys. It's hard because I really do like the figure. Right outside the box, I was like that instant like gratification of like, yeah, this is like the best Iron Man figure I have. And then as I've come to think about it a little bit more, I definitely still love the 47 and 46 more. The 46 concept art's a little debatable. I really still love that trio from Iron Man 2, the 4, 5, and 6. So if I'm being honest with myself, it's probably in the 6 to 7 range, kind of tied with the 46 concept art. Which it feels weird to say that, but like some of those figures are just fantastic.
It's a tough one, man. Like you were saying before, you're choosing between your kids because they're all well-made figures. They all aesthetically look just as good as you possibly could. I don't know. I mean, I haven't really given it too much thought. I think I still have Mark V as my number one. I just absolutely love that design. Breaking them down, I mean, it's up there. I don't have as many Iron Man figures as you do, Brian. Yeah, I mean, it's right in that range, right around the concept art one. I don't have the 46 in hand yet, so it'd be nice to see a comparison. But TC, how do you feel? Where do you think it ranks?
Well, first, you can't have this ranked equal to the concept 46. The concept 46 is great, but it can't be ranked. It's got to be ahead of that. But anyway,
it is. I just decided.
My number one, actually, I think I have a top 4 or 5 pretty clear. My number one is the Mark V. I just think that the engineering actually is even a little better on the Mark V than on the 50. You have all the pieces that come out of the legs. The paint's amazing. You have the bicep feature that the 50 has, and you have all the battle damage pieces, and it looks exact. I mean, they all look great, but it's spitting image of the scene in Iron Man 2. After the Mark V, I'd probably put the 50 at number 2. I just think that the totality of the armor in Infinity War, in combination with the quality of the figure that Hot Toys produce and the paint, and then a lot of the features outweigh the negative, the steps back they took with the shoulders and stuff like that. But the fact that you can take apart the arms and the legs for the accessories is a great thing. And then right after that, it's going to be the 47, the 4, and the 6. And that's how I rank my top 5. 47 is just an amazing color scheme. And so it's hard to get away from the gunmetal with the red and the gold. And it comes from, I love the Homecoming movie. So that's number 3. And then 4 and the 6 are interchangeable. I have the 4, so I'll rank it ahead of the 6.
Yeah. I mean, I can't remember if I've mentioned this before too, but I think once I do have all the Iron Man die casts, and they'll probably always make one. There'll be a special edition one, or they'll remake something at some point. But I'd love to just kind of do a post on our website and get the photo booth out, get images, and then attempt to rank them. And it's going to be hard, but I have a feeling it would be a little fun too. All right, guys, as I've been mentioning that, anything come to mind that we want to rate this on a scale of 1 to 5 based on?
Man, well, TC.
Broken guitars.
Done. All right. So as I've done throughout the night so far, and it would just be fitting to do this, but TC, as the guest to the host, and we're definitely going to have you back again if you want to come back. And I think it's been a great part of the conversation, but I'm going to give you the opportunity first, TC, to give us a rating of 1 to 5 broken guitars for this Iron Man Mark 50, aka the Mark L.
I say 4.75 broken guitars. I can't quite give it a 5 because it's not my favorite Iron Man. So I can't give it a 5 because there's always something better. The Mark 5 would take the 5, but I say 4.75. The nitpicks are small. It captures exactly what you want from an Iron Man figure from Infinity War. And Infinity War is my favorite movie out of all the Avengers movies. So it's a great figure that, it's necessary to an Infinity War collection. So 4.75.
Chris?
I'm right there with you, TC. I'm at 4.75. It's got pretty much everything I could ask for in this figure. And I just, I'm wondering if that accessory pack is going to enhance this figure, or if if it's going to be kind of a letdown, but we'll discuss that when that shows up. But yeah, man, 4.75. Where are you at, Brian?
I'll make it 3 for 3. I'll make it 4.75 broken guitars. I've kind of debated between. I don't think it would have gone 5. I agree with you, TC. I don't think it's quite there. I think some of the nitpicky things I talked about, like the splayed articulated hands, are just kind of it's forgettable. It's kind of inconceivable that that's what they ended up with. But I think all things considered, it just looks the part. It has the thing I like about it the most is as I keep looking at here on my desk, I've got it out of my DTOF here as we normally do for these audio reviews, and it just has that presence. That's all I can really say. I mean, overall, it looks good in any collection. It looks good with other Iron Man figures, as you mentioned. It's going to look good if you wanted to pair it up with the Titan crew of Doctor Strange and Iron Spider, and Star-Lord, and all those guys, or whatnot. It definitely is. I think it's a must add to any collection. Mm-hmm. I would also say that it's crossed my mind to grab another one to hold on to just see what the aftermarket is after this is sold out. I just don't. Every time I think it's a good idea, I talk myself out of it. But I do think this is going to be another one a year from now when it's sold out, that it's going to be another one of those Iron Man figures that's commanding a lot of money, and new collectors jumping in are going to unfortunately have to pay it if they want it. And it's just the nature of what's going on with the character. I mean, as we've talked about before, some of the best work Hot Toys does outside of the paint apps to a lot of their sculpts, and more often than not, they knock it out of the park. The other thing they do awesome is engineering Hot Toys Iron Man figures, and I don't think you're going to want to miss this one, especially that you can still get it for retail.
That's the key point right there. It's getting it at retail. Though being at the 407 price point, you wonder how quickly it'll start going up, because I just remember when that got released and people started talking about it being over 400, and now we see where things have trended upwards. You know, you just wonder, are those prices going to increase as drastically as some of the other ones that were maybe $50, $60, $80 cheaper originally? But
so just because I did a quick calculation, I said, okay, and I'll base it off not getting sales tax. So if you bought it in New Hampshire, you pay $407 to Sideshow, figure $25 shipping, give or take. And then if you decide you want to sell it on eBay, you're going to have to net another 13%, $10, 10% flat for eBay fees, and then about 3% for PayPal. Just to break even, if you decide you want to get an extra one of these, you would have to sell it for at least $493.16. Down the line, I think it's possible, but I just want to caution people from saying like, hey, I'm going to get an extra one to sell it. I mean, if you sell it on a group, take 10% off that, so it's not as high, but you still, if you buy it at retail and you buy it and you have the shipping, you have to factor that into what your net is.
You're gonna have to wait. You're gonna have to wait to profit on that, because they have the reissue, and so Sideshow is gonna get a whole nother crop of them come October, November.
True.
So with that in mind, and the fact that there is the Mark 7 out there coming, there's the Mark 85, I think you're gonna have to wait to profit. You can buy one, sure, but it just might take a year or two, maybe almost 2 years to finally get to a point where it's worth the $650, the $700 you would want to profit off it. We'll see. Who knows? Who knows how popular it is? We'll find out soon enough.
Well, after this review, it's going to be the hottest figure on the market, because that's what we do here. So, all right, guys, great review, great show, TC. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a blast. Like I said, we'll definitely have you back. And yeah, let's get to the plug time and just kind of final thoughts. So we've got our website and YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is growing by the day. We definitely appreciate everybody subscribing to that and checking out all the different content that we've got, including this podcast, Scavengers Assemble, Rogue One 6th. We have our TeePublic store for a couple days. All of our t-shirt designs that Roy did are on sale, and check that out. Any of those sales go towards our hosting fees, which help out a lot. We're not making any money off this. We're just hoping to keep the lights on and not have to pay out of pocket for that. We have our Facebook page. We're on Instagram. We have our private group, Six Scale Scavenger Collectors. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, YouTube, Spotify, Stitcher, and sixscalescavengers.libsyn.com if you want to throw that RSS feed into your podcast catcher of choice. A couple of shout outs. We gave PJ the Paradox Nerd several. He's great. Check out his channel. Tashi Station, John Martino, they run a great group over there as well. And then finally, Chris, I know we were supposed to have a crossover with the Collecting Weekly guys, and it was supposed to happen probably this week, and you had some travel for work, so that got postponed a little bit, but we definitely have that, on the radar there. And once we can coordinate, it's just hard. It's hard coordinating two people. It was, we found time for the three of us here to have a podcast. Anytime you get 5 or more people and everybody's got different schedules, it's just crazy. But we definitely will have that at some point, hopefully soon, coming up.
Yeah. I look forward to a conversation with those guys. It's going to happen. So yeah, stay tuned.
All right, guys. Final thoughts.
Just thanks, guys, for inviting me. You guys are a couple of podcast pros, so it was nice to join the big show, and you guys have a good night.
Thanks, TC. Really appreciate your input, your involvement with the group, the community, on the Assemble, everything. So yeah, we hope to have you on again down the line. Thanks, man.
No problem.
All right, Chris, bring us home, my friend.
Excelsior.